Protests in France don't seem to be ending anytime soon, while the country this moment is in the grip of weeks of demonstrations that are being witnessed against the controversial pension changes.
There is a famous saying, all that glitters is not gold, and today this saying aptly applies to the city of lights, Paris. The last time France was in the global news when Samuel Paty was killed and the subsequent actions Emmanuel Macron took to crack down on Islamic terrorism. Well, this time France is in the news for a very different reason. What is it? Let us take a deep dive into the issue.
In his 2022 campaign, President Emmanuel Macron has stated that he'll bring new pension reforms once he is elected. This idea did not find many supporters at that time, but still Macron managed to win the election. In January this year, Macron unleashed his plan of pension reforms, which were met with countrywide uproar. What are the key points in these reforms? The French government has passed a new law which gradually raises the legal retirement age from 62 to 64. And the key point to note here is gradually. The retirement age will be increased by 3 months per year from September 2023 until 2030.
Currently, workers make social security contributions for 42 years. But from 2027, workers will have to make social security contributions for over 43 years. Rail workers, gas workers, central bank staffs, and a few other jobs were grouped into a category called special regimes with different retirement ages and benefits. But according to the new law, the special regime will come to an end for the new entrants to the job market. The only exceptions will be seafarers and Paris Opera House performers. An increase in minimum pension of up to 100 euros has been introduced. Guaranteed minimum pension income of not less than 85% of the net minimum wage, or roughly 1200 euros per month at current levels for the new retirees. After the first year of retirement, the pension of those receiving minimum wage will be indexed to the inflation.
I'm here because I not agree that the fact that the government don't listen to us and don't listen to the French people.
A seniors index modeled on France's gender equality index, and which would measure the progress made by companies by the training and the recruitment of seniors. On papers, the pension reforms sound good, right? So what is all the hue and cry about?
France has a pension system which works on the concept that the current generation pays for the retirement of the future generations. Active working populations have to pay high payroll charges to support the retired. But this has been the case since Second World War. So why does the increase in the retirement age by just 2 years affect the public so much?
This law mostly affects the blue collar workers because many of them start working from a very young age, and this law forces them to work longer than the graduates. Due to the nature of their job, sometimes their life expectancy is also less. The people taking part in these protests comprises of mostly transport workers, energy workers, dockers, teachers, public sector workers. Around 1.28 million people have taken to the streets to protest against the new laws. The garbage workers are on the strike. Piles and piles of garbage are lined up on the streets. Paris used to glitter once. It is known as the city of lights, but today it has become the city of litter. It is estimated around 7,000 tons of garbage has piled up in Paris.
Another major problem with the law, which even the supporters of the law have, is the way the law was passed. Macron invoked Article 49.3 of the French Constitution, which allows the government to pass a bill without the National Assembly vote. People feel it was undemocratic and unconstitutional to pass a law without the National Assembly vote.
Garbage collectors in Paris have now been on strike for 19 days. As hundreds of rubbish bags build up on the streets, it's becoming the ideal environment for rats to thrive. These rodents carry a range of diseases which are spread through their urine and feces.
The popularity of Macron has plummeted since this incident, and it has reached a new low. 70% of respondents said they are dissatisfied with the president, according to the IFOP barometer. Since December, Macron has suffered a substantial drop of 8 points, and he now sees only 28% satisfied and 70% dissatisfied, according to the poll carried out between 9 March and 16th March. Macron risked his popularity to make this bill a law, but was the way it was done unconstitutional? Let us examine how Macron got this bill passed.
The interesting thing here to note is that Macron had promised to pass this bill in his manifesto when he ran for elections in 2022. The Senate, the upper house of parliament, approved Macron's bill, but it had to be approved by the National Assembly or the lower house as well. So why didn't he get it approved by the lower house? Macron's party had lost its majority last year, and Macron was sure that it won't get the number of votes required for the lower house. So he invoked Article 49.3 of the French Constitution, which allows the government to pass a bill without a lower house vote, but the invocation of this article comes with a catch. It allows the lawmakers to file a no confidence vote against the government within 24 hours.
Macron survived the no confidence motion just by 9 votes. 278 lawmakers voted in favor of the motion, and if the number had reached 287, then the Prime Minister Bon and all her cabinet would have been forced to resign, and only Macron would have remained president.
Today, we are faced with uncertainty that hinges on a few votes. We cannot take the risk of 175 hours of parliamentary debate collapsing. On the basis of Article 49.3 of the Constitution, I engage the responsibility of my government on the pension reform bill.
Macron is not in the safe waters yet. The bill now needs to be approved by Constitutional Council. Both the left and the far right plan to appeal to the institution. The main question is why Macron risking everything for the bill, and what is the government's stance on it?
France has one of the lowest retirement ages in Europe. The population is growing older, the life expectancy is increasing, and the number of people financing the system is decreasing. How does it impact the French government? Let us look at some numbers. In 2000, for every retiree, there were 2.1 workers to fund his retirement. In 2020, the figure reduced to 1.7 workers for one retiree. The number of people retiring is more than the number of people entering the system. The government's projection states that the pension system won't be able to sustain at this rate and will completely collapse in the next few decades.
This bill will lead to an increase in the employment rate among 60 to 64-year-olds. In France, the employment rate within this age group is just 33%, compared with the 61% in Germany and 69% in Sweden. The pension of the poorest 30% will increase by 2.5 to 3% according to the government data. The government is estimated to save 17.7 billion euros per year by 2030, and the pension budget will be balanced. Existing forecasts without any reform show the pension budget deficit of 13.5 billion euros in 2030. The government has listed many benefits to the people by these current reforms, but the protesters are having none of it. Is Macron the first person to try these reforms, or were there attempts made to reform the pension plan before Macron also? In 1995, the then President Jacques Chirac had tried to increase the retirement age, but his plan was met with widespread protests and he had to give up his plan. In 2006, countrywide protests forced the then Prime Minister to revoke new labor laws for young people, even after they had been written into the law. History has proven that tinkering with the pension laws is not taken kindly by people, and the people have forced two presidents to back down. Do the French pension reforms remind you of the Indian pension reforms which took place in 2004?
In the year 2004, the old pension scheme was replaced by the new pension scheme under the Vajpayee government. The new pension scheme, or the national pension scheme, still hasn't found much popularity among the state governed by the non-BJP states. For example, Rajasthan, Himachal Pradesh, Punjab and Jharkhand. In fact, the OPS was a major talking point during the Himachal Pradesh elections. So what is the difference between the old and the new schemes? In the old pension scheme, there was a simple formula to calculate the pension. The employee used to get half of the last drawn salary until his death. The scheme also took into account inflation rates, and the pension was received as and when the inflation rates demanded. The government bore the full burden of paying the pension, which indirectly means that the working population of India was responsible for paying the pension of the retirees. Income from the OPS is not taxed.
The NPS in comparison is a little more complicated. NPS had two modes of investments, and the individual can decide which tier to choose. The two modes are auto choice and active choice. There are four investing options: equity, corporate debt, government bonds, and alternate investment funds. Under active choice, you can choose your own combination of investing options with a maximum of 75% in equities up to age 50. Also, the contribution to alternate investment cannot exceed 5%. Under auto choice, the allocation is made as per the investor's age automatically by NPS. The RBI has warned that going back to the OPS, the old pension scheme, will be very dangerous, and that it will put a lot of burden on the state treasury. Data from the CMIE, Center for Monitoring Indian Economy, states that the share of pension spending in state revenue has been steadily increasing. It was less than 10% at the beginning of the reform period and had increased to more than 25% by 2021. According to the State Bank of India, the current value of aggregate pension liabilities, if all states switch to the old scheme, will be in the range of 31.04 lakh crore. The NPS tries to solve the problem created by OPS by finding a middle ground. The problem with OPS is that as the life expectancy has increased, the number of pensioners have increased, and this puts a burden on the working population, and they subsequently end up with paying more taxes to fund the pensioners. The NPS reduces the burden on both the taxpayers as well as the government, and the government can use the money saved for other purposes. As you can clearly see that the problem faced by France currently are similar to the ones faced by India under the OPS. India found a middle ground way back in 2004 through the NPS, and maybe France too can take a leaf out of India's book. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel right away for more. If you like our work, support us on Patreon. The link for the same is in the description and pinned comment. We'll come back with a new topic.